Welcome to the Missing Old Radio at the Luxury Hotel, the podcast where we dive into perplexing mysteries that unfold in the most unexpected places. I'm Anna.
And I'm Branden. Today, we're exploring a truly bizarre case that combines luxury, deception, and a peculiar theft that left investigators scratching their heads.
Before we begin, we want to issue a quick warning to our listeners. This episode contains discussions of theft, deception, and explores the darker side of human nature. If these topics make you uncomfortable, now might be a good time to switch to something lighter.
And we should emphasize that what you're about to hear is entirely fictional content created for entertainment purposes only. Please don't try to recreate any of the activities described in our show.
That's right. While our storytelling aims to be engaging and dramatic, it's important to remember that crime has real consequences.
Now, with that out of the way, are you ready to hear about a vintage radio that vanished from one of the most secure and prestigious hotels in the country?
A radio that wasn't just any ordinary device, but a priceless piece of history that disappeared without a trace, leaving behind nothing but questions and a hotel reputation hanging in the balance.
The circumstances surrounding this theft are so unusual that you might find yourself questioning everything by the end of our episode.
So settle in, listeners. You're about to enter a world of luxury, intrigue, and unexpected twists that will keep you guessing until the very end. Let's paint a picture of where our mysterious disappearance took place. The Bellevue Grand is not just any five-star hotel, it's an institution. Situated in the heart of downtown, this 42-story masterpiece of architecture has been hosting elite clientele for over 8 decades.
The Bellevue isn't just impressive, it's iconic. With its marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and impeccable service, it has welcomed presidents, royalty, and A-list celebrities through its revolving gold doors. Just last month, they hosted the entire cast of that superhero blockbuster during their press tour.
The lobby itself is something to behold. Soaring ceilings, original artwork worth millions, and furnishings that make you feel like you've stepped into another era of sophistication and elegance.
And speaking of another era, that brings us to our central character in this mystery, the 1938 Marconi Supreme radio. It was displayed prominently in a custom-built glass case near the concierge desk, illuminated by special lighting designed to showcase its burnished walnut cabinet and brass detailing.
This wasn't just any vintage radio. It was one of only 12 ever made, and the only one in fully functioning condition. The hotel's founder purchased it directly from the Marconi Company before World War II, and it had remained in the hotel ever since.
Hotel literature valued it at approximately $175,000, but experts we consulted suggested its true value on the private collector market might exceed $300,000, especially given its pristine condition and complete documentation of provenance.
The timeline is crucial to understanding this case. On Tuesday, March 12th, security footage confirms the radio was in its display at 11:42 p.m. when the night manager did his rounds.
But by 6:15 the following morning, when the early shift arrived and began preparing for the day, the display case stood empty, with absolutely no signs of forced entry.
Even more bizarrely, the hotel's extensive security system, including motion sensors, cameras covering every angle of the lobby, and 24-hour security personnel, recorded absolutely nothing unusual during those crucial 7 hours.
It was as if this substantial 30-pound antique radio had simply vanished into thin air.
The discovery itself was quite dramatic. It was Maria Conti, a front desk manager who'd been with the hotel for 15 years, who first noticed something was amiss at 6:15 that Wednesday morning.
According to the incident report, Maria was walking across the lobby to begin her shift when she glanced at the display case and stopped dead in her tracks. The radio, that magnificent centerpiece of historical technology, was simply gone.
Maria described the moment to investigators as surreal. At first, she thought she might be mistaken, Perhaps the radio had been moved for cleaning or maintenance, but the empty space in the custom-built display case told a different story.
She immediately called over the night security guard, Trevor Wells, who had been stationed in the lobby all night. His reaction was pure shock. He insisted he hadn't left his post except for 2 scheduled 5-minute bathroom breaks, and the radio was definitely there during his 3 a.m. walkthrough.
The hotel's general manager, Richard Blackwood, was called at home and arrived within 30 minutes. By 7 a.m., the hotel had implemented its crisis protocol, contacting police, reviewing security footage, and establishing a discreet perimeter around the display area.
What makes this theft particularly significant isn't just the radio's monetary value, though at $300,000, that's certainly substantial. It's the historical importance of the piece. This Marconi Supreme wasn't just rare. It was a technological masterpiece of its era.
The walnut cabinet alone took craftsmen over 200 hours to create, with inlaid mother-of-pearl details and hand-polished brass knobs. Inside, the vacuum tube technology was still functioning perfectly, a testament to the engineering standards of pre-war manufacturing.
The hotel had actually used the radio in their marketing for decades. It appeared in brochures, television commercials, and was highlighted on their website's virtual tour. For many repeat guests, checking in at the Bellevue meant nodding hello to that familiar radio display.
What's particularly strange about targeting this item is that it would be virtually impossible to resell on the open market. With only 12 ever made, and this being the only fully functioning one, it would be immediately recognizable to any legitimate collector or auction house.
And that's what makes this case so perplexing from the beginning. Why would someone risk stealing something so identifiable from one of the most secure hotels in the city when it would be nearly impossible to sell?
Well, as perplexing as the motive was, the investigation kicked into high gear immediately after the discovery. Detective Sarah Parker from the Major Crimes Unit arrived at the hotel by 8 a.m. and wasted no time in securing the scene.
The first step was reviewing the security footage, which is where things started getting really strange. The Bellevue Hotel boasts one of the most sophisticated security systems in the hospitality industry. 47 cameras throughout the property, including 3 with direct views of the lobby display case.
But here's where it gets bizarre. The footage showed absolutely nothing unusual. No one approached the display case between Trevor's 3 a.m. check and Maria's discovery at 6:15. The radio was clearly visible at 3:02 a.m. when Trevor walked past it. By 6:15, it had vanished, but the cameras showed no one tampering with it.
Investigators initially suspected the footage might have been tampered with, perhaps a loop inserted to cover the actual theft. They brought in IT forensics specialists who confirmed the system hadn't been compromised. No hacking, no loop, no digital manipulation whatsoever.
Detective Parker then moved on to questioning the staff. All 15 employees who were working the overnight shift were interviewed extensively. Night housekeepers, kitchen staff preparing for breakfast service, the engineering team, everyone had their movements accounted for.
The hotel guests posed another challenge. With 124 rooms occupied that night, that meant potentially hundreds of people to interview. Police prioritized guests on the main floor and those who had been seen in the lobby during the critical time window.
One particularly interesting aspect was the lack of physical evidence. The display case showed no signs of forced entry. The security system hadn't triggered any alarms. It was as if the radio had simply disappeared into thin air.
Forensics found only a single partial fingerprint on the glass that didn't match any staff members or regular maintenance personnel. Unfortunately, it wasn't complete enough to run through any databases.
At this point, Detective Parker started developing theories about how someone could have pulled this off. One possibility was an inside job, someone with intimate knowledge of the hotel's security protocols and access to keys or security codes.
Another theory involved a sophisticated theft team using technology to temporarily disable the cameras without triggering the system's failsafes. There are devices that can create brief electromagnetic pulses that might disrupt electronics without leaving evidence of tampering.
Or perhaps the most disturbing possibility, that the thief had been hiding in the hotel for days, studying patterns, waiting for the perfect opportunity, and knew exactly how to navigate the blind spots in the security system.
Detective Parker also considered whether the radio had been removed earlier and replaced with a convincing replica that was then removed during that window. That might explain why no one noticed anything amiss during routine checks.
Whatever method the thief used, one thing was becoming increasingly clear. This was no ordinary smash and grab. The level of planning and execution suggested someone with specific knowledge, significant resources, and a very particular interest in this radio. As the investigation deepened, Detective Parker began focusing on 3 primary suspects. Let's start with the most obvious one, a guest who called himself James Harrington, who checked into the hotel 3 days before the theft and checked out suddenly at 4:30 a.m., just over an hour after the radio was last seen.
What's particularly suspicious about Harrington is that he paid in cash, used a driver's license that later couldn't be verified through normal databases, and specifically requested a room on the first floor, not far from the lobby.
Hotel staff described him as a middle-aged man who kept to himself but was spotted multiple times examining items in the lobby, including our missing radio. He claimed to be a vintage electronics enthusiast to one of the concierges when asked about his interest.
The timing of his checkout is what really raised red flags. Who leaves a luxury hotel at 4:30 in the morning unless they're trying to avoid something? And conveniently, the taxi he called wasn't from any registered company in the area.
Then we have suspect number 2, Eliza Morgan, who had only been working at the hotel for 3 weeks as part of the housekeeping staff. Her employment references checked out initially, but deeper investigation revealed discrepancies.
2 of her previous employers had no record of her ever working there. And interestingly, she had called in sick the day after the radio disappeared. When police went to her apartment to question her, neighbors said they hadn't seen her in days.
What makes Eliza particularly interesting is that her work schedule gave her access to master keys and security codes. She would have intimate knowledge of the camera placements and guard rotations. Perfect inside knowledge for planning such a theft.
And our third suspect is perhaps the most intriguing, Frederick Donovan, a wealthy collector of vintage electronics who had actually inquired about purchasing the radio from the hotel 6 months earlier.
The hotel manager confirmed that Donovan had offered a substantial sum, we're talking mid-6 figures, for the radio. But the hotel declined because it was part of the original owner's collection and had significant historical value to the property.
Donovan has no criminal record, but he does have both the motive and the resources. He could have easily hired professionals to acquire the radio after his legitimate offer was rejected. And his alibi for that night is that he was home alone at his estate, which is conveniently just 30 minutes from the hotel.
Looking at opportunity and motive, all 3 have compelling cases against them. Harrington was physically present with strange behavior and suspicious timing. Eliza had inside access and disappeared immediately after. And Donovan had both financial means and a documented desire for this specific item.
What's particularly challenging for investigators is that none of these suspects appears on camera doing anything suspicious with the display case. So if one of them did take the radio, they somehow managed to beat what was supposed to be an unbeatable security system.
Just when investigators thought they were closing in on one of our 3 suspects, a completely unexpected development turned the case on its head. 3 days after the radio was reported missing, the hotel received an anonymous email.
The email contained something shocking, detailed photographs of the radio's interior workings, specifically focusing on a hidden compartment that wasn't mentioned in any of the hotel's documentation about the piece.
This is where things get truly bizarre. The email claimed that the radio wasn't stolen for its antique value at all, but rather for what was allegedly hidden inside it decades ago by the hotel's original owner.
According to the mysterious sender, the vintage Zenith transoceanic radio contained a small velvet pouch with several uncut diamonds that had been smuggled into the country in the 1940s. The email included historical documents suggesting that the hotel's founder had connections to diamond traders during that era.
The sender wrote, and I quote, "The radio served its purpose. The contents have been reclaimed by their rightful owners. Consider this matter closed." Hotel management was completely blindsided by this claim.
Naturally, Detective Parker was skeptical. This could easily be a misdirection by the actual thief to throw off the investigation. But there was something about those interior photos. They showed details of the radio that weren't visible from the outside and weren't included in any public documentation.
The investigation shifted to researching the hotel founder's history. Interestingly, they discovered that Harold Winthrop, the original owner, had made several trips to South Africa in the years before opening the hotel, and financial records showed some unexplained influxes of cash during that period.
They also located Winthrop's estranged granddaughter living in Boston, who confirmed family rumors about grandfather's insurance policy, supposedly valuables hidden throughout the property that only family would know about.
What makes this twist particularly significant is how it completely changes our understanding of the suspects. If the radio was targeted for a hidden treasure rather than for its value as an antique, then our collector, Frederick Donovan, seems less likely.
And it raises new possibilities. Could our mysterious guest Harrington actually be connected to the Winthrop family? Or perhaps Eliza Morgan wasn't hired randomly? What if she was planted specifically to recover this family treasure? It took investigators another 2 weeks, but they finally managed to trace the anonymous email back to its source through some sophisticated digital forensics. And the person responsible wasn't any of our 3 initial suspects.
It was Charlotte Winthrop Hayes, the great-granddaughter of Harold Winthrop himself. She had never been on the hotel's radar because she used her married name and had deliberately maintained a low profile.
When confronted with the evidence, Charlotte didn't deny taking the radio. In fact, she seemed almost relieved that the truth was coming out. She confirmed that family stories about grandfather's insurance policy were absolutely true.
Charlotte explained that her family had fallen on hard times. Her father, Harold's grandson, had squandered much of the family fortune before his death, leaving Charlotte with mounting debts and a terminally ill mother who needed expensive medical care.
The radio had been specifically mentioned in old family letters that Charlotte discovered while clearing out her father's estate. These letters, written by Harold himself, contained cryptic references to the sounds that travel the world hiding the sparkle of Africa.
Charlotte had spent months planning the theft. She temporarily took a job as a night cleaner at the hotel using false credentials, carefully studying security protocols and camera placements. She even created a special tool to extract the radio without setting off the pressure sensors beneath it.
The most interesting part was that she never actually removed the radio from the hotel. She took it to a maintenance closet, extracted the diamonds from the hidden compartment, and then planned to return it within days to its display pedestal.
Unfortunately for Charlotte, a routine inventory check occurred before she could replace the radio, triggering the investigation. When she realized the hotel was searching for the radio, she decided to send the email as a way to end the investigation without revealing her identity.
As for the diamonds, there were 7 uncut stones with an estimated value of $1.2 million. Charlotte had already arranged a buyer through a connection in Antwerp's Diamond District.
So, what happened to Charlotte? Well, the hotel found itself in a complicated position. The diamonds technically belonged to the Winthrop estate, making Charlotte a legitimate heir. But her methods were clearly illegal.
After lengthy negotiations, the hotel agreed not to press charges if Charlotte returned the diamonds and signed an agreement acknowledging the hotel's rightful ownership of the radio and any contents within it. The hotel then made a confidential arrangement to assist with her mother's medical expenses.
The radio itself was eventually returned to display, though hotel management added a discreet plaque acknowledging its unique history while keeping the diamond story private. They've also significantly upgraded their security system throughout the property.
As for our other suspects, they were all cleared. The mysterious Mr. Harrington was actually a food critic writing an anonymous review. Eliza Morgan really was just a new employee with embellished references. And Frederick Donovan, though still interested in acquiring the radio, had nothing to do with its disappearance.
When we look at this case as a whole, there are so many fascinating implications and lessons to take away, aren't there, Branden?
Absolutely, Anna. I think one of the most obvious is for hotels and museums displaying valuable items. This case really highlights how traditional security systems can be vulnerable to someone with inside knowledge and determination.
Exactly. Multiple security cameras and pressure sensors weren't enough because Charlotte had systematically studied all of these measures while working as a cleaner. Hotels might want to consider rotating security protocols and implementing more thorough background checks, even for temporary staff.
And for collectors of valuable items, there's an interesting lesson about documenting the complete history of your acquisitions. Had the hotel known about Harold Winthrop's diamond hiding habits, they might have checked the radio's interior years ago.
What fascinates me most is the human element of this story. Charlotte wasn't your typical thief motivated by greed. She was desperate, trying to care for her dying mother, and in her mind, she was simply reclaiming a family asset.
It's that moral gray area that makes this case so compelling. She did commit a crime, but she was also the rightful heir to those diamonds. The desperation of her situation pushed her to take extreme measures rather than attempting legal channels.
And there's something almost poetic about how Harold's insurance policy eventually did exactly what it was intended to do: provide for his family in a time of need just generations later than he might have expected.
It makes you wonder how many other heirlooms and antiques around the world might be hiding similar secrets. This kind of thing has happened throughout history, especially during wartime or economic upheaval when people needed to hide their valuables.
The radio itself became valuable in ways beyond its monetary worth. It connected generations of a family through a secret only they knew. There's something powerful about that, despite the methods Charlotte used. Well, that wraps up another mysterious case for our podcast: the missing old radio at the luxury hotel. Thank you so much for spending time with us today, dear listeners.
We hope you enjoyed this twisted tale of family secrets and hidden treasures. Next week, we'll be diving into the vanishing art dealer of Venice Beach, a case where a prominent figure in the California art scene disappeared along with millions in paintings.
You won't want to miss it. If you enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find exclusive content, including photos related to our cases, on our website at missingradiopodcast.com.
And if you really want to support the show, consider joining our Patreon. Your contributions help us continue bringing these fascinating stories to life every week.
Before we go, we want to remind everyone that this was entirely fictional content created for entertainment purposes only. Any similarities to real events or people are purely coincidental.
That's right, and as we always say,
some secrets are meant to stay hidden,
but we'll find them anyway. See you next week, mystery lovers.